Using Google Forms to measure student progress.
Hi everybody. This will be a little bit of Google Forms 101. I'm going to go through the basics of making a Google form and creating questions on it and getting the data for it and turning that data into a chart. And the examples, I've got 3 examples that are all real IEP goals that I found on Embrace and changed the names. And so you're going to see kind of how we would use this in a real scenario, okay? My first example is I've got Sally Mae, short-term objective B. Okay, so this is a Google form that I made to measure a short-term objective. So this is not the final goal, right? And I have that short-term objective copied and pasted from my IEP directly into here. So Sally will follow 2-step quantitative and temporal directions given visuals and repetitions as needed in 4 out of 10 trials. Okay, so this is not the final goal. This is an intermediary objective. We're keeping it realistic. This might be something that we might be able to accomplish in a month or 2. And so how do we measure this? Well, this is going to be a really simple pass-fail situation, okay? So you're going to have a trial, and how exactly you define a trial is going to differ depending on what kind of person you are. If you're a related services professional, you could pull a kid out, you can give them a scenario, and that's an explicit trial. But if you're a classroom teacher, your trial might be an implicit trial. It might be something that you're observing or measuring throughout the normal course of the day. You're going to have a trial, and you're going to have your date, your trial date. If you have in a situation where you can do multiple trials in a day, then you might want to add another question for time so that you can differentiate them, right? And then you're going to have a third question, which is success, true or false. And that's it. You want to keep it simple, because if this form gets really complicated, you're not going to want to get in there and do it multiple times in the day sometimes if you have to for a particular situation. So keep it simple is the name of the game. And then I'm going to go ahead and click the preview button, and I'm going to show you what the form looks like. And you could have this open on a laptop or an iPad or somewhere in the classroom, wherever, and you just have it always open so that you're always ready to jump on there and pop in something. Have it on a tab, always open on your computer. And you can just say, okay, well, it's today, and maybe I did it at, I'm just gonna click this little guy here, I'm gonna say, 9 a.m., all right? And I am observing that I gave Sally some 2-step directions, right? And she passed. Okay, cool, true. Submit. All right. Oh, wait, okay, we're going to do another one? Fine, I'll submit another response. And it's the same day, but maybe it's later in the day. Maybe it's 1 p.m., right? And how I'm doing that is I'm just using the tab key to go from box to box. And then we did another one, but she failed. Submit. Okay, I'm going to do one more just so that I can get a little bit of data in our spreadsheet right now. So I'm just going to go trial date is, we'll say, we did another one the next day, right? And we're doing a lot of trials because maybe I'm a classroom teacher and I see this kiddo every day. And this is again at 9 tab 00 tab AM. Okay, great. And success, I'm noticing that Sally Mae seems to have a lot more success in the mornings instead of the afternoons. That's a really interesting data point. And then I'm going to do like another one. I'm going to do one more. I'm just going to do, this is the 16th now, and I'm going to do trial time. And let's say we did another one at 1 and tab 00 tab. I'm just going to do I'm going to use my arrow keys. Sometimes the keyboard is faster than the mouse. If you get used to using the tab key on your keyboard to kind of go down the questions. And I'm going to say, you know what? Today she was having a good day. She got a good night's sleep last night, and she is able to follow those 2-step directions. I say true, submit. Now I've entered this form 4 times, and think about how fast I did that, right? The shorter your forms are, the faster it is to just go one, another one, another one, another one, and you get a lot of good data. Now, how do you get the data? I'm going to go back to my example. Now, you can see if you go back to your form in your design view, you're going to see at the top you're going to see responses 4. I've got 4 responses. Go ahead and click on that. And you're going to see you know, these little summaries of this thing. And you can notice that out of 4 trials, they've actually provided you a nice bar graph. Sometimes you're going to get useful charts out of this automatic generation. Sometimes you're not. All right. But in this case, this is pretty useful. 4 trials, 3 out of 4 trials. That kind of sounds like something you would see in an IEP goal, right? And you can actually take this and you could just click that copy button and you could paste it into a Google Doc. It's great. Or we can go to the spreadsheet of the data, which is what I'm going to show you next. I'm going to click View in Sheets, and it's going to take me to a little spreadsheet here. And there you go. So trial date, trial time, true or false, for if it was a success or not, right? And how can we turn this into a chart? We could, honestly, I think that the pie chart that we got is going to be one of your best ones. For a pass-fail situation, that's probably going to be one of your best ones, right? Because it's going to give you that X out of number of trials information. But what if we really want to see progress over time and we want to kind of see maybe like a line graph? You wouldn't do a line graph for this because pass-fail gives you a line graph that looks like this, right? But there might be situations where you want to do a line graph. I'm going to show you that one next. So here's my next non-rubric example. Okay, so this is Jimbo Jones. Does anybody know who Jimbo Jones actually is? No. He's a character on The Simpsons. He's one of the bullies who beats up Bart Simpson.
I remember that.
Okay, all right. So by November of 2024, Jimbo, but this is the final goal measurement. So if it seems really ambitious, keep in mind that this is a final goal. So this is like going to be at the end of all of the short-term benchmarks. By November of 2024, Jimbo will identify and copy 26 out of 26 uppercase letters and identify 26 lowercase letters of the alphabet using an age-appropriate grasp on the writing utensil on 3 out of 4 recorded occurrences. Okay, so it's kind of an ambitious goal. You wouldn't use this as a short-term benchmark, right? And in this case, let's see. So this is again a time where I'm doing both date and time because that gives me the option of doing multiple trials in a day, which might be something that we want to do. If you are not going to do multiple trials in a day, or if you're treating the entire day as one big trial, then you don't need the time question. Just have the date. And I'm going to show you an example of that on the next one, right? And then here, I've got a few more questions because we're measuring a lot of little things in this goal. Look at what we're measuring in this goal. Identifying and copying capital letters. That's 2 things, identifying and copying how many capital letters. And then lowercase letters, same thing, identify and copy. So I've got 4 questions here. How many uppercase letters identified? How many are copied? Lowercase letters, how many identified? How many copied? And then I'm going to put age-appropriate grasp on writing utensil, yes or no. Right? And then I've got success, true or false. Okay. Now that last question, you can just say like, did they do all of them? Did they do all 26 with success and with grasping the writing utensil? If the answer is yes, then you just put true. But you don't actually have to have this last question if you know how to do a little bit of easy Microsoft Excel formulas. Okay, I am not going to talk about those unless you all want me to. So we'll get through the easy stuff first. I'm not going to talk about Excel formulas. But let's go ahead and look at some of my, do I have responses? I don't have any responses. Okay, I am going to cheat a little bit. And I am going to I'm going to go to my responses. I'm going to click Link to Sheets. It's going to create a Google Sheet for us for this chart. Okay, so now if I take this column and I select it like so, and I take this column, now I'm going to do this on my keyboard. How do you select 2 columns that are not next to each other on a spreadsheet? Because if I click right here, I'm going to lose my first selection, okay? How do I select both? Now, you guys are all using Windows computers, it looks like. So I'm going to say you're going to select that first column with the dates. Now, I'm going to hold down the Control key on my keyboard, and I'm going to click on this column right here. And now I don't lose my first selection, and I've selected two separate columns. You select your columns with your data that you want. You go up to Insert and Chart. And it's going to try to guess what kind of chart that I want. Ooh, look, I think it got it. I'm going to have to zoom out just a little bit so that we could see that more clearly. There we go. Uppercase letters identified versus trial date. And now I've got a really nice line graph where you can see the progress that the student is making across those dates. And I can even have multiple lines on here to show those other lines. Now remember, I cheated and I copied and pasted those numbers across, so even if I did that, the lines would just overlap because they're all the exact same. But you could have multiple lines for all of those different performances that you just measured. And this is going to look really great in a report for your IEP team and your parents. So it is pretty easy to create those. And then once you've created a chart, you can click on these three dots right here, and you can download the chart as a picture file. It's a PNG file, and you can put that picture file in any kind of document that you want. Or as a, you could, I wonder what publish chart is. I don't know. You could do copy chart. You can copy it into a Google Doc that way. So this is just a really great way of making that data. Now, the last example that I want to show you uses the rubric from earlier in the presentation. All right, so here's the rubric example. I've got Tom Cruise, SEL, short-term, benchmark C. Right. Goal, by March of 2025, Tom will perform problem solver skills at a 3 level on 3 out of 4 days. So this is an example where we are observing Tom throughout the day, and at the end of the day, we're charting what the performance was. And if you remember from that rubric, I'm going to say a 3 level is defined as minor conflicts observed. Some positive problem-solving strategies were used to deal with conflict. So if I'm going over this other laptop here, and there we go. So you guys can't see this, is too small, but this rubric right here, it has as a problem solver skill down here, a 4 is no conflicts observed and only appropriate strategies used to resolve conflicts. And then a 3 is approaching that, but not quite. So how do I turn this into a Google form that I can use to measure it? One of the things that I did was I made sure that all the information about what I'm measuring is in the Google form itself at the top, so I never forget exactly what it is that I'm measuring. I think it was over here, I heard somebody say you do a trial and then you look at what you took, the notes you took for the trial, and you're like, wait, what did I just measure? This is how you make sure you don't run into that problem. If you make sure that at the top of the Google form, you put exactly what it is that you're measuring. And if you are comfortable having this on a laptop on all the time, ready to jump onto, everybody's style is different, but you might be able to skip the intermediary step of taking your data on paper and putting it into here. It's less work, right? But you have to be prepared and have this already up on a tab ready to go. Then you've got your trial date, and the whole day is the trial. So I'm not putting a question for what time it was. And then I've got conflicts observed. Now, look at how I did this question. I put what each number represents in the question itself, right? So 4 is none, no conflicts. It doesn't mean 4 conflicts. It means 0 conflicts, right? 3, minor conflicts. 2, on and off conflicts. 1, several conflicts. And I just adapted that from the rubric itself, right? So if I'm looking at Tom Cruise's day and he's, getting into fistfights and he's doing the Tom Cruise move where he punches somebody in the back like this, that's an inappropriate response to conflict resolution. And so I would put a 1, I would put a 1 because that's a lot of conflicts. Then the next question, problem-solving strategies used. That one skill is actually measuring two things if you read it carefully. So when you read those, ask yourself, is this measuring just one thing or is it actually measuring two things? And if it's measuring two things, you got to measure both of them. So how many appropriate strategies did Tom Cruise use to resolve conflicts? 4 always used appropriate strategies. Some, remember, the goal for success is a level 3. So they used some strategies. Now you might ask yourself, well, wait, what's the difference between always, some, minimal, or none? And in my opinion, yeah, that does kind of introduce a tiny little bit of subjectivity into this measurement. I would probably, if I were writing the rubric myself, I would probably modify that so that it was more quantified. So here, let me propose this and you tell me if it's appropriate or not. If instead of conflicts observed, if I put 4, no more than 1.
Yeah.
And then 3 would be no more than
Yes.
2 conflicts.
Yes, exactly. And he's going to get that data based on the baseline and getting a reasonable rate of improvement. And
Now, when I'm scoring a day for this skill, I measured 2 things. Those 2 scores might be different. They might not have gotten into many conflicts, but the conflicts they did get into, they didn't use good strategies, right? So at the end of the day, I have to give them a number of 1, 3, 2, or 4, and I can't count. And so I might say that if Tom Cruise got into a lot, maybe he got into several conflicts, but he actually did pretty good on resolving those conflicts using appropriate strategies. I might give him a 1 for the conflicts observed score and a 3 for the problem-solving strategies used, but then I have to give him a score for just his overall performance on the benchmark. Again, that's part of the quirkiness of the design of that particular rubric, but I might just split the difference and give him a 2.
And we're operationally defining in the rubric. So there's no question. What does it look like? It looks like 4. Just what Jeff said, you can put that into the rubric, whatever you're establishing as a team or based on that baseline.
I also want to point out something, and this is really important when you're designing these. Notice that I did not, when I created these answers, I did not put any words into the answers themselves. I did not say 4 dash no conflicts observed. I did not do that. And why? Because it's important if you want to be able to create useful charts to try to keep these just as numbers. So keep your descriptive language in the question, not in the answers. Now there's ways around that involve Excel formulas, but I'm not going to get into that right now. All right, so I am going to go back to my example. Now in this case, I actually did create responses, so I'm going to go to my responses tab, and I'm going to view in sheets. And here is my data, right? So here I have my date. Oh, look, and I even created a chart already. So here I have my date, and I have my conflicts observed and my problem-solving strategies used. And I just selected these 2 columns, column C and D, and since they're right next to each other, I can just click on the top cell and drag my mouse down so I select those 2 columns. And then I clicked insert and chart, and Google Sheets was so smart, it gave me a really good chart here. So this is going to show with higher scores, meaning better, and you might want to actually edit this this text right here. You could actually edit that to say higher is better. And I can see that on the 14th, you got a 2 on both, and on the 21st, you got a 3 on a lot of conflicts, or not very many conflicts, but a score of 2 on problem-solving strategies. And this is so useful for parents because they're going to see that progress over time. Now, let's real quick, I'm going to create a Google form in front of you, and we'll see just how to do that. So if you are in Google Docs, you can click on the New button, and you're going to create a Google form. Okay, now my recommendation is that you have one form for each benchmark. You don't want to have your data from multiple benchmarks mixed up in one spreadsheet. So there's no limit to the number of forms you can create in Google Drive. So just go nuts. Create a Google form for each thing that you're measuring and label each one very specifically so that it's easy to pick out the one that you want. So you're going to put your goal or benchmark that you're measuring. And you want to go right into the IEP, copy and paste the whole thing and just pop it into here. And then you're going to create your question. The first question that you always want to have, I would recommend the date. So you click on the question and you just, if you actually, I love Google Forms. If you just type the word date, watch what happens. Boom, it changes it into a date question. And then you ask yourself, am I going to be measuring multiple times in one day? And if you are, then you probably want to have a time question. So you could do a time. And if I do that, oh, it didn't do it this time. Okay, this time it's actually making me click on the type of question it is and select time. You don't have to use time. You could do a short answer question and call them trial A, trial B, trial C. And you could do it that way. That might actually be easier than putting the time, but it's up to you. Then you put what is the thing that you're measuring. So now let's say that I'm measuring a score. Like for example, how many capital letters was he able to identify and copy, right? So I'm going to put capital letters ID'd. And then I'm going to do a short answer text because I just want to be able to type in a number. And to make sure that it stays a number, let's make sure that the form will only let you type in numbers. And it won't even let you type in an accidental space or something like that. So in order to do that, you're going to click on the 3 dots here in the lower right corner. And you're going to do response validation. This is how you control what people are allowed to type into a box. This is especially useful if you have a form that you're designing, but you are having other people fill in data in the form. If you force them to type in the right kind of answer, you're not going to have mistakes goofing up your data, right? So you do response validation, and this is already, it says it has to be a number, and then it says greater than, and you know what? I'm just going to put greater than -1, because I want to allow 0. 0 is an allowable number if they were having a really bad day. And that's it. So now this question will only allow numbers. And I also want to make it required. I don't want to allow my user to skip this question because then I'm missing data. Now, let's say I have to measure multiple things that are kind of similar. You don't have to go through all of those steps over again. You can just click on the copy button right here, and it will copy the question. And then you can actually just change the description of the question. So I can do lowercase right here. All right, lowercase letters ID'd. And now I've just created my second question, doing almost no work at all. Now, how do I turn this into a spreadsheet? That's so easy. All you got to do is click on the Responses tab at the top and click Link to Sheets. It's going to create a Google Sheet, and it's going to link the two together. It lets you customize the name, and you click Create. And it opens up the spreadsheet in a separate tab right away. Yes?
When you create the sheet, does it go in the same folder as the Google Slides, or does it go to your doc? Do you know?
That's a great question. My informed guess is that it goes in the same folder wherever the form is.
Okay.
You might have to verify that.
Okay.
So that is pretty much it. Now, what about letting other people in your team fill out the form that you created? To do that, you're going to go into Send. And you could put in the email addresses of your colleagues that you want to be allowed to fill this out. See, I've invited you to fill out a form. You could also do a link you can actually just take that link, or you can get a shorter version of the link, and then you can copy and paste that link into an email. That's like usually my preferred way to do it, because then I can explain, hey, I'm not just sending you this out of the blue. This is the form that we talked about to fill out for Jimbo Jones. Now, that's for sending the form to other people to fill out. But what if you're actually working together with one of your teammates on actually building the form and collecting the data and working with the data? Then you want to add collaborators. So to do that, you click on the 3 dots up here, and you click Add Collaborators, and you put in the email addresses of your colleagues who are going to be working with you on both creating the questions, and it also allows them access to the spreadsheet that the form is populating into. So any questions so far on kind of the nuts and bolts of using Google Forms? Any questions on best practices when using these when collecting data? Okay. I think I'm going to stop it there, because I think I've already gone over.